In today's video, I'm going to show you how to create a ClickUp project intake folder so you can understand how from the ground up, add clients, add projects, and do everything else you need to actually walk through the client. And all resources will be shared down below, both with the charts, so you can see those, but also with the full on systems and templates down below. If you don't know who I am, I'm the founder of FlowClick. I help build backend systems for agencies at scale and businesses. So I have like full end-to-end systems where I build everything from project management to automations and everything else. And in short, this is a follow-up video based on my last couple of videos. So I'm going to be building from the structure I've been doing in the past couple of videos. So if you're curious to see, just download the templates from there, and then you can just import the same systems I'm using today's, right? So we're going to use it using the FlowClip YouTube templates today, and that's where we're going to be building from. So I'm going to use this primarily for project intakes and not the CRM part, because I think that the project intake is more of use, more common of businesses, of people using ClickUp primarily for the project intake, right? So the first step is I want to go to the place where I have my first couple of projects. Sometimes it can be here in the folder hierarchy. Sometimes it can be in a specific list. Sometimes it can be in a workspace. This totally depends on how you have built up your ClickUp. I'm going to go on the structure I built from the last couple of videos, okay? So the structure I ran at that point was each list has their own service. So we go into the business audit because that's the first step in the workspace. So we go on view, we go on the project intake. So you can have a couple of views here, but the only thing we have to care about is the form integration. Okay, so we go into the form integration. I'm going to call this add client project in here. I like to keep this quite simple. I mean, so I know that some people, or for most teams, I usually just say like, this is where you find clients. This is where you add clients, right? So they just know. I like to keep it simple. Of course, we can make a more of a fancy name here, but they just want to use it as a project intake form. Add client project in here. Okay. So there are a couple of different ways here. We have, of course, the job application. That's not for today. Feedback form. That's not for today. Order form. We don't have an ecom today. And IT, of course, is not for today. So we're going to use the project intake form, right? And this depends on what plan you have. I have the highest plan, so the Business Plus, so I can customize this very nicely. And the thing I like to customize them just for my own sake, but also if you're sharing it to your team, you want it to look professional, right? Even though it doesn't make that much of a difference in here, I like to make mine custom because I feel like it looks very nice. So first thing I do, I add my logo. Once you have added your logo, I like to you can add covers on. I'm not going to make it too much in detail here. But in short, we go into project intake form. I'm going to make this preview. You see, okay, it's now white. I want to make it dark. Background, I usually just search for images. Pattern. You can have your own stuff. I'm just going to pick something simple here. Like this preview. Looks decent enough. I'm not going to like spend too much time on it, right? So works fine, right? Takes me like 50 seconds. 15, 20 seconds and you're like have basically on the design. Add client, start project intakes in this form. So worth keeping in mind, you can share this form to other people by just pressing share button, and they can fill out on their own computer as well. So you don't have to go into ClickUp. You can share this to whoever and however you want, right? And the logic I try to build, of course, is we have the ClickUp space, right? We then create a new form, we name the form, and now we add the fields, right? But to explain some expression fields here on how it actually works, project name. The project name is the name of the task, right? So it's very important to not to understand the logic behind this, because if you don't understand what the different fields mean, you don't understand how to actually create a form. So in this case, for me, it's like quite self-explained that, of course, the project name is equal to the task name. But for people who are new, like they might not know when. The thing is important to know here, not everybody is naming their tasks based on the project name, right? They can have their internal stuff. Sometimes you have, let's say, a large database use numbers instead, or something like different, right? Or for orders, it's going to be order number. But for now, all of like agencies and run marketing agencies, they have basically the similar structure here, which is just like, what is the client name? Client / project name. Like I can confidently say that, generally speaking, most of the agencies I work with use just client names, like, hey, FlowClick marketing, right? And then that's it, right? Example, you can just, for simplicity's sake, you can just write FlowClick, right? Or just like an example of your client so they understand. Tip, yeah, we can remove that one. Now, I'm just going to remove these fields because I don't feel like they're relevant. So, in this document, you add fill this document up. Like, when you're building and when you have an agency, when you have a large businesses, it's very clear to just set like very easy workflows. Don't make it complicated. Don't make it fancy. Just say like, this is what you fill out when we have signed the agreement with the client on the call, let's say, right? Make it simple. Don't make it complicated, make it simple. So our custom fields are assignee. So it depends on how we structure this. If, let's say, we have a client intake folder in active clients, I'm going to name this probably a project manager. I think that's the structure I will run with. But generally speaking, I'm just going to leave the assignee for now, since it's not important. Okay, what fields do I have? I have basically nothing that important. I would love to do... so obviously I have a different structure, so I don't need that much information. So I'm going to do both a client intake folder in here, but also in the CRM system. If I would realistically do this for a team, I would probably just link both of them together through automation. But for now, I'm just show different examples here. So we're going to have, we add a field, task description, additional client information. You can see you have requirement fields, so you can, like, if they're required to answer. In my opinion, they are. You can have, of course, hide ClickUp branding if you want. Also, like a premium feature to have. You can show reCAPTCHA. I'm not sure if that's very relevant. So you can have like, hey, you have to the reCAPTCHA. I'm not really needed. You can redirect to someone if you have something else. I'm just going to keep this simple. So no redirection, no like button labels. I'm just going to keep it simple. Like default page, you can of course play around with the answers. Keep it simple, right? So the only thing which is kind of important, like we don't store much information around the client here because I store everything through the main CRM space. So let's say this is your simple client project. So let's say I enter a client now called FlowClick. It's basically right. So let's say I submit this. Now, since I have automations on the back end, it basically creates everything for me automatically. As you can see, it creates the stages, it assigns me. So we don't have to have a bunch of information because it just does everything for me here. You can see. And if I now fill this out, the stuff I'm doing now with automations has been done in my previous videos. If you're curious what's happening here, just check them out with the tiers. You can see, same thing assigned. Everything just rolls automatically here. So like, I don't have to worry about much here. But so to the point, how I actually connect this to make it like a full-on system, I'm going to create a relationship task. I'm going to create client. I'm going to pick the specific field in called CRM active client. Through here, I'm going to create a client. I'm going to create a new list. Right, so I'm going to create a form, right? Let's add a form. Project intake. Add a client. Wait. We add a logo. You see, just as I think quick, it's probably white, which usually is fine. I like to keep it dark, right? Super clean. Add clients here during a kickoff call. Now I'm going to actually change some names here because this is usually how I run things. Client name. Same thing here. I'm just going to call it FlowClick. Then we're going to delete these feeds. So now it's going to be a bit more custom. I'm going to first thing, I'm going to, so you basically do this, you use assignee. I'm going to call this assign project manager. If you're only one project manager on the team, you can just pick like when this has been added, you assign one person or like use specific template. I like to have just like a variable. So if you have multiple managers, you can just pick the correct one. You add a question. So in this case, during my process here, during my list, we have multiple different fields. So I have like, okay, first thing I'm going to probably add here is settings, add questions, attachments. And I'm going to call this client document. It's basically going to be the agreement when you sign the call. So just client contract. I feel like this is best pick. Then we have more. You can see like kind of what the things we use here. So goes after working with us. This is maybe more for like the CSM to have, which I think is quite important. I like to add the due date, which I'm just going to rename to next payment due. I'm going to just turn this off just so I can now do this quite easily. Right. I can add a bunch of different things. I feel like this is quite self-explained. The custom fields you have here is everything you use, right? So if I want to add more, like of course, like email, phone number, and stuff along those lines is going to be super important here, right? And you do the same thing here. We add the email. Like I feel like you get the point on how to actually use this now. You just like customize however you want. So contact phone number. I'm just going to put it on required, and then email. You can like, okay, so quite worth, like important thing to mention here is that you can have like a name in here, like contact email, and you can put something else. So you don't have to confuse people. So like next payment due is just basically the due date, right? But I can customize the names in here as well. So in short, let's pretend I now fill this out. Open this in a new tab. Flow click, very clean in my opinion, the document. Next due date is on the 27th, okay. It goes out to working hours, they automate their entire agency, ClickUp, and make.com. And let's say like pipeline. Go to email, let's say pick my email, project manager, myself. I then submit, right? Super straightforward. Then this gets added in my ClickUp here through active clients. You can see flow click, due date. I could put, obviously I haven't automated this number, I could just put it as active client. This is just like a template. Very straightforward, right? And now, the thing which is most important, why do I have multiple lists? If I go back to the business audit now, I can now attach the client. And I have 2 flow clicks. Let me just remove the old one. Flow click 2. Then I can go back here. I pick the flow click main. I can now just attach me to the main task. Flow click main 2. So the reason I have it like this, so you can kind of follow along and actually understand the core structure in ClickUp here, is because, okay, if people now work on a task in the business audit, like if you're an actual agency here, you're going to have multiple people, multiple employees, multiple teams. So each person is going to have their own stage. So if now you have your own task, you can see, okay, quick information about the client. That's all you need. You can work on your tasks. If you need all the information, of course, like if you're an actual agency here, you're going to have like Google Drive folders or like logos or brands, right? I'm just going to put URL. I'm going to put Google Drive. Like you have all these assets. I'm quite sure you follow along that far, right? You understand you have these things and you can customize them. I just want you to understand the basics of adding the fields. So if you now want to find information about the client, you just press on the field here and you have all the information you actually need. Okay, what are their goals? What's their email? What's the Google Drive? What are their assets? What's their website, right? So basically, if let's say in this case, this is an SEO agency that also does web design. I'm going to add a URL called website URL, right? And you can put like flow click. Right? So flow click, we're going to, let's say, copy, we're going to add that. So assuming you work in these stages, okay, I'm going to find information about the client. We just go through the attached task, right? Which is the client in here. Or of course, just go through here. Both works. It's the same thing. You can now see, okay, what's Google Drive? What's their website? What's their login details? Password. Flow click is agency. Something, right? So in short, that's how you connect everything together through ClickUp. And that's kind of our structure I run with. Because assume you now keep working with the client and keep like finishing the tasks and it keeps moving on. How many stages do you have? Right? I have to attach documents. Okay. But let's just like show you this in practice now. I add another field here called also relationship. Client list. Super simple. Active client. And if someone works in this list now, flow click, Google business profile, optimization. And they want to know how many posts they have to do. Anything similar, right? I can still access to the same client no matter what and where you're working. And the reason I have all of this is because you don't have to duplicate or like each task have their information. Because there's so many times I've seen people just like duplicate the same fields, the same information for 8 different departments. I was like, why don't you just have one centralized one? So let's say the client gets a new Google Drive or let's say a new logo or like anything else, right? Then that CSM has to go through all the 8 different workspaces and change all the information. We want one source of truth. And that's kind of how I work with intake forms, and that's like CRM and project intake forms. There are more forms, such as like the feedback form. I think that's quite explained. You just like answer feedback. Um, Job application, same thing. Very straightforward. It's just like job application forms, right? But now that you understand the basics of ClickUp, you also understand how to add everything as well. So you just understand, okay, hey, how do I edit fields? How do I customize fields? How do I rename fields? How do I share this, right? Those are the basics you need to actually get started. Yeah, if you're curious, I'm going to share all of the workspace details down below. So for specifically the whole infrastructure around here with the document and everything else, I'm going to share everything here. So if you want a template, if you want anything, just download it with my Gumroad link, and you have all the structure you need. So you don't have to build the initial structure yourself. You can just download it from me. Same thing with the Excel drawer here. Excel drawer, we can just download everything here. Kind of how the logic goes from like, hey, if required field, error, so on, right? So yeah, if you ever need help with ClickUp, just reach out to me. You can go on my website, you can schedule a call, or you can just email me down below, or just press the book a call link down below. So yeah, wishing you all the best. Good luck with the ClickUp journey. And if you have any questions, comment. I will answer all of them. And of course, if you have more thoughts, hey, I want to see this specific thing, just let me know. Thank you, and wishing you a wonderful day.